This is KLEAN Radio.
Welcome, everybody out there listening to KLEAN Radio. In studio tonight, of course, my co-host with the most, Andrew Spanswick.
How's it going, Judah?
It is going really well, and I want to welcome everybody out there listening. Go to facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. During the show, let us know what you think. We go to it after the break. Also, go to @KLEAN Radio. Our hashtag tonight is Make the Call. That's our hashtag tonight is Make the Call. I think it's really important to talk about this. Andrew, a lot of people, myself included, drank while going to meetings, drank while going to outpatient, drank right after I left rehab, drank while sometimes, no, I don't want to say drank while I was in rehab, and this is something I did, and it didn't mean I didn't want to get help. I was really confused. I didn't know what was going on. It was almost like as long as that was there, I could drink and I'd be somewhat safe. And I know a lot of people out there that are listening, listen to the show while using, listen to the show while drinking. And I did that for a long time. I would listen to radio shows. I would, do all that stuff. And part of me, I was really confused. And if you're confused, make that call. Give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Andrew, why do you think people do that?
Well, I think that people that are looking for answers for problems that they have, obviously you're going to start being attracted to things that give them some sort of sense of relief or information that might help them. And the media and entertainment is obviously one of those ways. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes people can form different types of denial around, like, oh, well, at least I'm listening to KLEAN Radio or whatever, even though I'm drinking. And we had a little bet about that, right, Judah? Like, when we started, Judah was like, there's no way anybody listens to KLEAN Radio using it. And I go, I bet about a third of our listeners are using when they listen to our show.
And you were actually correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if it was a third, but we definitely get people that are very interested in the idea of getting sober or the idea of, what issues they might be having. And and what to actually do about it. So, we're actually, I think it's really interesting that people actually do listen to stuff and they try to figure things out, and hopefully we provide those answers. And I love it when people call in and they finally make that reach to call out for some help and ask questions that they're not getting answers to just by listening.
That's actually a great point now that I think of what you just said, because I know a lot of people, and we meet them sometimes, they get into treatment and they go, yeah, I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was like, with who? By myself. And or I read the outpatient and rehab guides, and I read all these things online, and I'm like, and how did that work out? And I couldn't understand that, but I think you're right.
One of the biggest or the most prevalent higher defense mechanisms once you get past denial and projection is intellectualization and rationalization, where people will actually say, I've read the big book, so therefore it's done all it could do for me.
It didn't work for me, right?
And
I looked at rehabs.
Or even I went to a rehab, and, it's obviously, nothing's going to help. And so they resign themselves, or I really don't have a problem like those people do, and I think that's common. And that's part of the problem with addiction and other mental illnesses as well, where people, they don't know how to deal with the fact that they have it. And so their brain does use these defense mechanisms to justify and rationalize their behavior and how they're hurting themselves, and unfortunately it's to their detriment.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. Our hashtag tonight is Make the Call, and that's Make the Call. It's 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We have an amazing returning guest tonight. He's beautiful. He's talented. He's remarkably an amazing individual. Let's welcome back from the TV show Intervention, Rod Espudo.
Thank you.
Hey, Rod, how's it going?
That's for your Rod. That was for your voicemail.
Thank you.
And that's the message.
Well, believe it or not, I was thinking about what you said, and people
about being beautiful. Because that's always.
I'm going to dodge that one because I'm wearing a pink shirt.
You're okay.
It's salmon.
So Rod
it's salmon.
It's salmon. Rod Espudo.
That's not salmon.
Rod Espudo from And here's a great example. I know tons of people that watch Intervention. Tons of people that have watched it high, watched it drunk, because I met so many people that come into treatment that Intervention was one of their favorite shows.
And it also minimizes their issues. Like, that person's bad. Right. You know, now that's a bad method.
Look at how they treat their mother.
Exactly. You know. And the other thing is that, you know, how do people go to meetings drunk or loaded? Very simple. When you have no self-respect, you're not going to respect the rooms.
Yeah.
So it's okay. You know what I mean? It's just a part of the process. And I think the crazy part is how many people that walk up to me that see intervention that aren't clean, you know, that recognize me from the show. You're Rod Espudo. I'm like, yeah, I am now. And you know what? I talk to everyone. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to discriminate based upon the fact that they're stone cold loaded. Right. You know? And you know what? Maybe the message that I could carry right there, you know, in 10 minutes in that conversation, you know, could work. But that's a great topic about, you know, people get away with, you know, getting loaded at the workforce, you know, and they carry that everywhere, you know. And when they finally get clean and they have that self-respect and they respect their 12-step program, it's kind of amazing how they defend it. You know, they learn to defend it and what have you, and that's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, Andrew?
Well, that's definitely, you know, why part of these defense mechanisms like denial and that stops you from realizing that you have a problem. Yeah. That's why it's so important to keep working on your recovery all the time. Even if you do get sober, those mechanisms that can let you think that, oh, I don't have a problem again, and the brain will trick you into thinking that. And that's a natural reaction because a lot of people self-medicate, and that's a reason a lot of people actually become addicted. They start using a substance, and then they become slowly abusing it, and then they end up addicted.
This is actually interesting. I want to see, Rod, you're going to see the Andrew game show. Okay, if somebody has ADD, Andrew, what do they treat it with?
Amphetamines.
If somebody's schizophrenic, what do they treat it with?
Self-medicating. Yeah, mostly crack.
And what about meth? What meth heads go for?
Bipolar disorder.
Yeah, or thought disorders, or they create the thought disorders with them.
Yeah, this is the Andrew party trick, but it's actually great. It's actually so important, that knowledge, because so many people don't understand addiction and they want to get mad at people, and they don't understand half the time or most of the time, Andrew. People are self-medicating.
You know, alcohol is the number one treatment for anxiety and depression for people. That's the vast majority of people that are drinking out there start with an anxiety problem or depression, and that's generally how people's drinking escalates. They'll have some sort of crisis or something in their life, and they get this sense of relief temporarily.
And it's funny because the addict or alcoholic never acknowledges their journey. You know what I mean? They're too busy living it, but the family members have to live it, you know, and what have you. And breaking that denial and intervention is sometimes difficult because it's okay. You know, I'm 35 years old and live at mom's house. What's the big deal?
Well, in today's day and age, it's getting more normal. But if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN. You are listening to KLEAN Radio. Give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Hashtag tonight is make the call. And I love what we're talking about. So I want people to understand this out there. We're joking, we're laughing, and we're recovered. But also in a way, this is a topic that it's so dire sometimes that you have to look at the bright side, Andrew. You have to look at yeah.
Yeah, I normally look at the dark side of everything, but
yes, you do.
Yeah, no, you know, it's a strange problem, and I think that you know, especially there's what we were getting back to before with where that I think is a really interesting point is that when somebody's an addict, that isn't really necessarily what the first problem was. That's not necessarily what, you know, their underlying issues are. And I think it becomes such an overwhelming problem, and it becomes such an overwhelming part of a family problem and a family dynamic and a dynamic with all your friends that you become identified with all of that. And when you finally stop drinking or stop using, then all of a sudden you also still have to go back and deal with all the stuff that brought you there, because all of a sudden you're going to start feeling things again. Absolutely. Like people that use opioids, you know, heroin and oxycodone and drugs like that, you know, their main thing that they're trying to do is not feel anything. They're trying to shut down their ability to feel any emotion. And when you start feeling emotion again, that's harder even than sometimes the detox itself.
And that's why most people go into relapse, because of that emotion.
Right.
And anyways, let's if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. Let's get to Ed calling from Vancouver, Washington. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Ed.
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing, man?
Good. Good. You got a question?
Oh, yeah. You guys were talking about how people don't recognize their problems and whatnot. Well, I recognized my problem years ago. It's just I cannot find a rehab that I can afford.
Okay.
disabled. I've been looking for years, and I can't even go to detox because I'm only addicted to marijuana now. But it's a pretty heavy addiction. I smoke probably 4 grams a day.
That's a lot of weed.
What did you step down from? You said it's not only marijuana. Where did you come from? Where was it before?
My doctors gave me oxycodones for a while, and I did those, but out of all the drugs I've found, I've smoked crack, I've done meth. The only thing I haven't done is heroin. But there is no drug out there that gives me what I want. The only one that comes close is marijuana.
Okay, I want to talk to you quickly about that, Ed. And Andrew and I talk about this a lot because I'm a drinker, right? And Andrew, I find myself often saying I just drank because, I feel, there's become this competition. Right. And marijuana,
there's lots of different kinds of marijuana now. That's one thing. Yeah. The other thing is that different people have different biochemistry, and their brains work differently, and their emotions are connected to them, and they have a different story and a past. Some people are more quiet. Some people are more loud. Some people are more anxious. Some people are more depressed. So people, like we were just talking about earlier, different people that have different issues will find drugs that react to the way their mind's working and their emotions are set up to try and create an equilibrium so they feel more normal. So, while our callers said, and I'm sorry, I forgot the name. I don't have
his name is Ed.
Ed. So, Ed, you were saying that, you have a problem with marijuana, you want to detox, but it's the only one that works for you, which is so telling. It's so telling that, it's what the part that's working for you is the part that you really have to deal with.
Exactly.
Right, and the pot's allowing you not to deal with that part. So
yeah, well, I have a lot of issues that I'm working with a psychiatrist now to deal with, but it's really, with my intestinal problems and such, it's really hard.
Well, Ed, here's the thing. There's some really good rehab facilities around you in Vancouver, Washington. Are you interested in getting help? If let's say we found you a bed tonight, would you say yes?
Oh, yeah.
And you would check in tomorrow or check in tonight?
Yes, I've been looking forever. I flew to Colorado in Denver and stayed at a share house for 4 days.
It's not a great state. It's not a great state if you want to quit smoking.
You want to quit pot.
Marijuana capital of the world.
Yeah, and Washington State, which is the only.
Yeah.
Well, I have physical problems, and I couldn't share a toilet very well with the other 5 guys, so I had to.
Do you have IBS, or do you have what do you have going on?
So I have IBS, and I also have polyps that grow.
Okay.
So I have blockages sometimes.
Yeah, that's horrible. But Ed, these are all issues, and here's the thing: if you get off the weed, and you're going to be able to deal with all these things. So if you stay on the line, okay, I'm going to put our director Rand DeWitt on the phone with you. We're going to get all your information, okay, Ed?
Ed,
cool, thank you.
We'll try and get you a bed. I got a facility up in Washington, Ed. We'll try and get you in there, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great, no problem.
Ed, hold on. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. That was Ed calling from Vancouver, Washington. And Andrew, he's 43 years old. He's got a heavy, marijuana addiction. And whatever addiction you have, that's your, remember the 90s, crack was the thing. Crack was the big one. That was
actually the 80s.
Or the 80s.
And 90s.
Or 80s, 90s, and today. And now it's meth. You're the meth monster.
Now it's heroin, really. But it's a lot of things.
There's always more. Something, and here's the thing. Whatever your drug is, it's your drug. You don't need to, if marijuana is killing you, then that's your addiction, that's what's killing you, and that's what you got. This isn't a competition.
You don't have to qualify.
That's exactly right. I'm the crack demon.
Well, my thing is like addiction is just one part of a whole series of issues that you might be dealing with.
Right.
And it's, once you've got that problem of addiction, that's going to stop you from dealing with a lot of other stuff as well. So, and it's sort of the primary problem. It's in, I used to just own psychiatric hospitals and just work in acute care psych wards. And we used to see, when I started, the psychiatric problems is the primary problem, and if there was a substance disorder, then we'd sort of like talk about it once a week for an hour, right? Quite literally. And as I was working more and more years in the field, I realized that a lot of these people were self-medicating. We were talking about earlier, like people with schizophrenia, what drug do they most use? And most of them use crack because it stimulates them and it makes them think they're thinking normally.
They feel well.
Yeah. So, but they're not, and so you see a lot of young schizophrenics out there that end up getting addicted to crack. and they use it to self-medicate because they also don't like the regular medications they're on for a variety of reasons, even though they're getting better. But so as I was going through this process, I realized that, wow, if I don't get people sober, then they're never going to be able to work on their psychiatric issues as well. So, we're seeing a lot of that. And that's like in KLEAN in West Hollywood, we really specialize in that dual diagnosis, working with people that have underlying psychiatric issues as well as substance abuse as a primary issue. Up in Washington, our facility up there is much more straightforward, just dealing with people that have addiction that don't necessarily have as complicated underlying problems.
One thing that I wanted to say was that Judy brought up a good point, and that is
every once in a while.
I counted as 3 in the last.
He said you were beautiful. Yes, that was a good point.
Anyway, I have this theory, and I've stuck by it when I sober coach, is that the 3 reasons why somebody cannot get or stay clean and sober is unresolved grief, unresolved sexual issues, or the inability to let go of the lifestyle. And the 4th one is because of a mental, imbalance or challenge. And the lifestyle thing surrounds the drug or the drink as well. And that when you come into recovery carrying that in, okay, you don't have the drug, but you have the persona.
Yeah.
Junkies are all like, crackheads are going around, and meth addicts are like, looking at who's looking at them.
Right.
And
the stoners, the dude, yeah.
And on and on. And the thing is that, that sheds as you move forward. But if you carry it, then you're one of those people that judge somebody's bottom by what they used, not what they felt.
Well, the other thing, a lot of people that have been are addicted to substances have been addicted for 7+ years before they even get help. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of that drug addict behavior that you're describing and the stereotypical types of behavior that go along with each drug, that is the identity that they form because they've been using for so long and they're stunted. And what we see is when people actually get sober, that then all of a sudden they have to go back and start from where they left off and figuring out who and what they were, what they're really interested in, what are the dreams that they want to live that they've never lived.
It's best to do it in a controlled environment.
And if you just tuned in, if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio. Our hashtag tonight is Make the Call, and make that call. It's 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. We want to hear from you tonight. If you're loaded, if you're high, give us a call, and I want to know why you're listening to us, because I want to know why. Let's go to Don, calling from Wilsonville, Oregon. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Don.
Yeah, thank you. I found you guys' radio show about 3 weeks ago, and I think what you're doing is great.
Oh, thank you.
I've been clean off of meth and marijuana since January 1st of 2005.
That's awesome.
So 9.5 years, and I did it the hard way. I went cold turkey. There was no rehab for me. I tried meetings for about a month and then was asked to leave the meetings because everybody else was high or drunk, and the person running it felt that I was solid enough at that point that me continuing to go would endanger myself. But a couple of the things that I found real quick when I first quit clean and that I'd like to pass on is if it's too hard to make the decision for the rest of your life, make it for today.
Yeah.
Today I won't get high. Today I won't drink. And then after a while of that, okay, I'm not going to do it this week. And the other thing I had to do is I had to walk away from everybody I knew and surround myself with good, clean people.
And it's not just about them being good and clean and being sober. It's about the lifestyle decisions and what, the idea that you might actually go out to breakfast,
Right.
In the morning, right? Like not in the early morning while you've still been up all night.
It's an amazing spiritual experience that you just said that, because often we go on sober fun, and I got to tell you, we've been to Malibu, and somebody goes to me, "This many people are out at 11 a.m."
Yeah, right?
And I remember when they said that, and I was like, yes, a lot of people are out at 11 a.m.
It's like people that get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and they drink coffee with friends,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
So Don, how has the last 9.5 years been?
The first year was real rough.
Yeah.
They had a lot of nightmares about drug use.
I want to. You know what? I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that a lot and a little bit, Andrew, because people actually, when they get sober and they get these drunk dreams or getting high dreams, where in the dream they feel like they're getting high and they feel ashamed, and they wake up and it takes them a second to even realize that they didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the brain is very complex. And one of the funny things is a story actually from a relative that went into a coma. And the only movement that he would make at all was rolling cigarettes. And then he eventually died. But that shows you how strong the addiction was, that he didn't move, but his brain was still trying to figure out how to get what it wanted, which was nicotine. And so his hands would actually make the pattern, because he'd been smoking for 40 years prior to going to coma. So there's all this stuff in our subconscious that's always trying to get what it still wants or thinks it still wants. And unfortunately, like, a lot of people don't realize, when you do a lot of drugs, especially drugs like, that are fairly strong, like cocaine and other things, it actually physically changes the structure of your brain.
Absolutely.
And changes how the neurotransmitters and the receptors operate with dopamine. Not to bore everybody to death with all this stuff.
I know what you're talking about.
Right. But the point is that your brain now is looking for that charge within itself, and it doesn't happen. Yeah, and it doesn't happen naturally at those levels. There's no way you can smoke meth, which is like 1,000 times the level of pleasure reception that you're going to get from just even caffeine. Exercising. Right. Caffeine is good, but meth's the thing is that what happens is you use it, it actually stops it from working altogether. Right. So not only does the meth not work, but it actually stops your brain from having any pleasure whatsoever, and so your life just becomes constant pain. So it's sort of like, I think about it, somebody once told me that, if you had a jar full of marbles, and each time you smoked meth, you took a marble out, eventually you're going to have an empty jar. Right? And it's like, that's it, when the jar's empty, that's it. And that's unfortunately when most people get help, is when their jar gets empty. But instead of getting help, when the jar is maybe like, hopefully even before they even take the marble out.
So Don, it sounds like you still have your marbles. So can you do us a favor, Don? Can you go to facebook.com/Clean Radio and like us, message us so we know who you are?
As soon as I have access to the internet, I will do that.
And private message us. We'd love to send you some stuff. I want Clean Radio all around Wilsonville, Oregon. And Don, check in anytime.
Will do. Keep up the good work, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling. And that was Don calling from Wilsonville, Oregon. If you just tuned in, you are listening to Clean Radio. Tonight, our hashtag is Make the Call. And to just go through that again, there are a lot of people. Rod Espudo's in studio. Andrew Spanswick's in studio. Rod's an interventionist. Oftentimes, I'm sure that you get calls from people that aren't ready. But, this isn't always about being ready, getting sober. Mm-hmm. Getting ready is a really long process. It was for me, but eventually the road bumps that people like Rod put in my life, it wasn't you in my case, but it was other people, that it's sort of, when I was ready to get it, I got it.
Well, the purpose of an intervention is to intervene. It's a stop. It doesn't mean quit. It just means stop and have that addict recognize, it's time, but it's close to being time.
Or to begin the process of treatment, which can take a long time.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing more and more, like with our new intensive outpatient program that we just opened in West Hollywood, one of the tracks we're working on in the evening is harm reduction, where people that are actually still using can come in and get evaluations and talk to people.
And if you just tuned in,
we got to go out for a break.
Listening to Clean Radio. When we come back, we'll get back to your calls. We'll get back to our social network fun stuff, and the discussion continues on Clean Radio.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. Tonight our hashtag is You Make the Call. We have Buddy Tottenen and our social networking guru. And Buddy's actually been talking to somebody throughout the whole show who's a little high. or smokes weed, and he actually listens to Clean Radio.
He does.
And
so what's been going on is I posted, have you ever been a part of an intervention, and what was it like? And he said he had, in his words, an intervention forced upon him, and he got into a violent argument with his family, and then 3 days later, he had a seizure from benzo withdrawal. He says right now he's doing much better. He still smokes marijuana because he has a central nervous condition. And
Andrew, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Which part?
The central nervous problem. Does marijuana help the central? I mean, what he's talking about?
It can activate or suppress different parts. I don't know what he means by central nervous problem.
And a brick wall can stop the car.
Yeah. I mean, the more interesting thing I think there is that, he's saying he has a central nervous disorder problem, and, he's abusing benzodiazepines, which are a whole class of drugs, which are basically tranquilizers. You've got Valium, Ativan, Klonopin. So Xanax is one of the more popular ones, probably after Valium.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that if you're taking a lot of it, when you stop, you can actually have a seizure. And we see that a lot with people who go cold turkey off of benzodiazepines.
Yeah.
There was a study done recently that showed 3 years of active, consistent benzo use will actually create anxiety.
Why don't you tell people, we're saying benzo.
It can also create a lot of depression and sadness.
What are some benzos, guys?
Benzodiazepine?
So people understand?
Yeah, they're tranquilizers. Valium was the first major one. In fact, at the peak, and I think it was like somewhere in the 1970s, they sold 2.4 billion pills in 1 year.
Wow.
Can you imagine making 2.4 billion of anything?
Wow.
It's a lot of pills.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So, but that class of drugs has actually been a good class of drugs for a lot of problems over time. There are things that, Valium is used in surgery to calm people prior to going under.
Flights.
Right. But yeah, there's some, if it's used sort of what we call PRN or, used occasionally, they can be very good. The problem is that they can be very addictive if people start abusing the medication. And then the other problem is that once people have been on it for a long time, the body actually gets habituated to it and has tolerance. It doesn't work as well anymore, but coming off of it is very difficult. And, we talked about the physiology of the brain and how it changes over time with drug use. Benzos is one of those classifications of drugs that has that effect. Your body actually becomes very dependent on it just to sort of stay stable with regard to anxiety.
And what else do you have for us, buddy?
Also, too, we posted what about safe injection sites and harm reduction, and do we need harm reduction in the United States? And then the same guy I was talking to, he said, no, we need more help with addiction. Someone else posted, feel harm reduction is a viable option for someone that is not able to achieve total abstinence.
Yeah, I actually believe we need everything.
Buddy, thank you.
Yeah, this idea that somehow harm reduction's bad and abstinence only is bad, or whatever. It's like, it's like, yeah, but
it's all the same loop to getting people help.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Absolutely.
we don't want people to die from
That's
their
exactly
addiction.
right.
And
Absolutely.
I think that, harm reduction is not, I don't think it's a good long-term solution. Some people argue that it is, and I think those people are a little misguided. But I certainly think that as far as people showing that they care and people giving an opportunity to work through whatever issues they're having, even if it is that they're going to be a long-term heroin user, which, is an unfortunate choice. But I would rather people be doing it in a way that isn't going to kill them.
I agree. And treating people with dignity goes a long way.
Right. And, we know that from the experiments in Vancouver with shooting galleries, what happened was it was a few years back in Vancouver, Canada, they actually had a really bad high level. Oh, it's not bad. They had high doses of heroin. There was very pure heroin came in, and they had a massive amount of overdoses, like 50 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so the government decided they had to do something about it. So they actually opened up shooting galleries, which are basically rooms had a booth, and you would get a clean needle, you get clean works.
Not clean with a K, clean with a C.
Wait, but hold on a second. And they had nurses there. And so you would go and you'd shoot up. And then if you overdosed, they would bring you back from the dead. So, and then they would also offer you help. They would offer you 12-step programs, and they also had a harm reduction program, and then they also had abstinence-based psychoanalytic program, and that has been a very successful program. Less people have died, deaths went down from overdose, and a lot more people got access to help.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to Clean Radio, so give us a call. The number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. Buddy Totten, thank you. Bridget's been on hold for a really long time, so let's go to Bridget. Welcome to Clean Radio, Bridget. Bridget, are you still there?
Hi. I guess my question for you guys is what do you recommend for ladies who have been sober for a substantial period of time and then have a relapse and then continue to relapse for a year even when they go back to meetings?
It's a great question.
And what kind of substance are we talking about? Someone that was, a woman that got sober and then constantly is now relapsing.
My addiction is alcohol.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have been addicted to alcohol probably since I was, since I started drinking. I've been a blackout drinker.
What was the longest you were sober?
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get it. We get what you're going through right now. When I'm going to use the crude analogy of addictions like having sex with a gorilla. You're not done till the gorilla's done. And
how did you learn that one?
And I heard it, and I didn't make that up. But Bridget, what she's going through right now is when I would go to meetings, right? And I wanted to be sober, and I couldn't stay sober. And I used to hear people say, "I'm back. I'm 56 days back, or 50." And now I can't stand it because you don't get to choose when you come back, right. And you're in that period right now, Bridget, where the booze has control of you.
Bridget, do you feel like that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Bridget, this is Rod. I had 15 and a half years clean and relapsed for 5 months. Now I have 10 years again. However, when I went back, it took a level of humility that I needed to embrace to stay. If by dodging that humility, I was dodging staying. So, I've talked to a lot of people who've relapsed over, years and years and years, and it comes down to this. You're going to have to pay a certain price to come back. You're going to have to pay another price to stay. You choose what the price is.
Yeah, and I think that also, if you're a blackout drinker, the next time you drink could be the last time.
That's
you
exactly
drink.
right.
And the consequences of blackout drinking can be severe, not just to yourself but to others. And I think you need to think about what brought you in the first time to get sober for 2 years and get back to what worked. Obviously it worked for some period of time and things were going well. Do you have any insight into why you started drinking again when you knew that you were going to start blacking out?
Well, I battled for a very long time. It's that back and forth. It's like, I'm in my 20s. This is normal. It's going to be okay. I'm not actually an alcoholic.
Right. And it's still cute.
And so, but I knew it was causing problems. I was losing jobs, friendships, family stuff. And I guess for me, I was removed. I lived in Seattle for a very long time, and my family removed me from Seattle and brought me down to Longview, which is where I grew up. And I still continued to drink for about a month before I went to an AA meeting, and I had been to AA in Seattle. And for whatever reason in Longview, I had gotten a job at a bank, which for me, I was like, I don't know how I landed that job. I was hung over at that job interview. But
you were in security.
I got a job, so I was very afraid. I was like, okay, I have to not drink. If I drink, I will lose this job.
Right.
And I almost burned down my parents' house because I cooked food in a blackout and passed out. And
I get it.
Yeah, I had a friend that went in a blackout, and actually we treated him clean, and he was cooking soup and he blacked out and fell on the floor, and then the pot exploded all over the kitchen, a metal pot.
It happened to me with macaroni and cheese.
Oh, really?
It stayed in the oven for about 12 hours until I started getting knocks on the door.
So this is serious stuff, and I think that, what you're talking about of, starting young and drinking when you're young and still wanting to experiment and go out, even though the consequences are much higher for you than they are for other people. Sometimes they're high for other people, even if they're casual drinkers, and especially if they drink and drive and stuff like that, or even fall over. I mean, I've had friends that's gotten really injured by just drinking casually, and knock themselves on the head, and it can be bad.
Bridget,
so
the question is,
but Brit, well, let me just finish here. That I just want to, Bridget, what you know that your problem is beyond that of a regular 22-year-old binge drinker, even, right? I mean, drinking for you is something that has long-term consequences. You can't control it. And you need help. So, the fact that you're calling is a great sign. It shows that you're reaching out and you're looking, for ways that you can solve this problem. I think hearing from us that, yes, you know what? You do have a problem. You definitely have alcoholism.
And one thing I wanted to say, Bridget, is I heard you give us, several great reasons, to get and stay sober, but I haven't heard one excuse to stay drunk. So, you've given us some good, the foundation is there. It's just a matter of applying
and Bridget, here's the thing. You're in Longview, Washington. Whether it's outpatient, whether it's rehab, sometimes these things do help, Bridget. And especially with alcoholism, I don't know how much you're drinking, but if you're an alcoholic like I was, I'm guessing it's a lot. So, so I'm glad you're laughing too, and I want people to understand this out there. We're talking about some morbid things again, and we're laughing. But here's the thing: it's how we get through this stuff. So, Bridget, are you interested in getting help today?
Well, I guess that's for me. That's the scary thing. So, after having 2 years and working the steps and getting a sponsor and helping other women and doing that whole thing and reaching that point of total neutrality and being sober is rad, and then getting back to a place of
yeah, it stinks. The place you're in right now, Bridget,
this is what
stinks.
Rod was talking about, right? Rod, you were talking about
and I've been in this place again for over a year.
Okay,
so
we're done.
I keep trying to get back in, and so I'm just
Bridget, because sometimes
I get scared that going into a treatment center, because my parents continue to tell me that if you go to a treatment center, you're still going to drink again. But we'll have paid for you to go to a treatment center.
Who says
well, that's a horrible thing for your parents to be saying. And you know what? But it's common. And the reason it's common is because parents get frustrated and they get really angry. And I'm sure they've said a lot of other things to you, but that's the one you remember, right? So, and also they might be frustrated in that they feel like they've tried so many things and that, because you failed again, that somehow they don't want to keep supporting you in failing, which is twisted, but it's also a reality that people get angry, and they get very angry at addicts and alcoholics. In fact, when I open up treatment centers, we often open them up in residential areas. And a lot of the people that try to stop me from opening them up are neighbors in the area that, they object to it. And I find out more, 9 times out of 10, the people that want to object to me opening are people that either have a problem themselves or even more so have somebody else in their family that had a problem that never got help and never got treatment. And they have so much resentment and anger towards the addict when in fact they should have compassion. And that's what our show's about, I think, is about understanding that there are people out there that care and there are people out there that want to see you get help and treatment. So, if that's something you're interested in, we'd certainly be willing to talk to you offline.
And your parents, Bridget.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Why don't you stay on the line, and our director Rand is gonna just hang on the phone with you. And here's the thing, Bridget. I know you're terrified right now, but everybody in here has been through this, and there's hope. I promise you, Bridget. For drunks like us, there's a lot of hope.
And you know what also, Jude, I like that you said that her parents should be getting help too, because
absolutely.
Their anger is misplaced, and they need to know that the problem that you have is not 100% your fault. Right. That you have a disease, and it's obviously affecting you, and it's affecting them. And there's a lot of damage that's been done from that over the years. And them getting some relief and help, as well as you, I think is critical to having a successful outcome, because you shouldn't have to be feeling guilty. You should be feeling proud about taking care of yourself and moving forward.
That's exactly right. And Andrew, I love what you said, and we're both, we just have really loving what each other says tonight. But I love what Andrew says about, now I forgot because somebody,
he loves what he says, but he can't remember it. That's what happens if you, by the way, if you drink too much for a long time, that's what happens.
That's exactly right. But no,
that's a consequence.
I know it was, what you said, it was about with the parents, just because your parents say something in the heat of the moment, they're your parents, and they love you.
Yeah, but people will latch on to the one negative thing. You'll forget about the 20 times that something positive was said, and the one thing that really hurts and you feel abandoned by. And that's part of what keeps people drinking, because they're trying to, stop that feeling of guilt or that feeling of shame. Remorse, and drinking works for that. It works for it while you're drinking sometimes. And then a lot of times it doesn't work at all eventually. And, and certainly once you get sober and you need to drink again to try and cover up that feeling. And that's why you see a lot of alcoholics guzzle their first few drinks, because they need to get there. They need to get a little drunk right away to make that feeling go away.
You know what it is too? I had to erase all the memories of people. It was like drug counselor, 3 shots. Right. Let's get him out of the brain. Family, 6 shots. 15 shots. I just drank 15 shots just to get rid of those people. Then I could enjoy myself. But if you just tuned in, you are listening to KLEAN Radio.
It's Judas Bar menu.
But you know what? Then when I got sober, I had to do it the same way. It was like I had to go to, when I got treatment, I had to, get help like I drank. Let's go to Mike calling from Seattle, Washington. Welcome to KLEAN Radio, Mike.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I've never actually even listened to your show before tonight. I just kind of was flipping through the radio channels and heard it by chance.
The best accident tonight.
Yeah. So, I guess my question was the trick to. I was kind of looking for advice on the trick to stay clean once you get there, because I've gotten pretty close before, and then I just couldn't find the motivation to stay that way.
Well, first of all, it's not a trick. This idea, and a lot of people have this thing is called magical thinking, which means basically that they come up with concepts or ideas that really aren't based in anything real. They're based in sort of like hopeful ideals or something made up, and they cling to those ideas. And then what they find is that those ideas aren't real, and that then all of a sudden that doesn't work for them anymore. So I think that, reality testing and getting into situations where you're talking with people where you're getting good quality information that's going to stand the test of time is really important. A lot of people that will sell you something, based on something that really isn't real for you is not going to work. So, you really got to find a new grounding. And some people call it a spiritual basis. Some people call it, just really understanding themselves better. Rod, you probably have more insight into this.
Believe it or not, I was just thinking, nowadays, I've been in the field of addiction for 26 years. It's the magical solution that requires less footwork and work to carry out. It's like that's what's trying to be sold now. Instead of true work and writing and purging and doing what it really takes, it's like the magical solution is a massage and then equestrian therapy and and then you're going to be okay.
What do you mean horseback riding? Horseback riding's not going to save my soul and my life.
I promise. And what it comes down to is that you're avoiding the work that needs to be done to get you where you need to be. Once you follow the path, all that other magical and stuff goes away, and that thing called reality, shows up, and it's okay.
And Andrew brought up a great point.
I also want to say I've generally found that horses tend to bite addicts. I don't know why that is. So
you have some.
I just think that equestrian therapy when you're on detox is not really a great idea.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And Mike, here's the thing: what Andrew said, there is no trick. This isn't this. There's no trick to this staying sober thing. I get it. A lot of people get sober and they can't stay sober. And sometimes the importance of a rehab. Let's say your car breaks down on the highway. You actually you don't kick it to the gas station, right? You don't kick it to the mechanic.
I was about to kick it pretty hard when it did break down on me.
But you call AAA, right? Or you call somebody. Sometimes treatments like that, it's like it's AAA. You need to get off. Get your mind clear, figure out what's under the hood, what's going on when you get it, and then you're ready to leave. But it's really hard sometimes. It's really hard if when you stop drinking and you don't have that support system, when you don't have that, whether it's an outpatient program, whether it's a drug treatment center, it's really hard doing this alone. It's nearly impossible. It's almost impossible trying to get sober with nothing. And I'm going to tell you this much. I people all the time, I wasn't afforded the luxury this time of going to rehab. I had to do, and I had no idea what was going on, Andrew. It was terrifying. Detoxing from alcohol, I'd feel the spiders, like they say, crawling around my head, and that was me.
Yeah.
And that was well. If you're feeling that, Mike, you definitely need help.
Yeah.
And
I'm not feeling that right now.
Right, but and here's the thing, and I didn't know what was going on. And one of the cool things about a show like this is we're telling people that's the feeling you go through while you're detoxing. So, Mike, the commitment you're going to have to make, like Rod was talking about, is, you put it down, but you figure out a support system. I would encourage an outpatient program. I would encourage a drug treatment center. And the reason I'm encouraging that is because I've seen the success with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's everything you guys have just said. It's definitely the nail on the head. The reason, I mean, like I mentioned before, I got close to sober last time.
Yeah.
And that was, I was doing it all by myself. I was I'm not an alcoholic. I'm actually a pill addict.
Yeah.
And it's like, just to kind of put it in perspective, at the peak of my use, it was about 300 milligrams a day, approximately.
Of what?
Of oxycodone.
Oh, right.
And then by myself, like, I thought I was doing a good thing. And by myself, I had gotten myself down to about 7 milligrams a day. So I figured I was pretty successful there.
Well,
titrating, like you guys said, I didn't have anything to kind of keep me going. I didn't have a support group, so just went right back to it.
This is a lot of things. I mean, titrating down is basically what you did, which means like slowly decreasing the dose in ways that is manageable to your body physically. And that's one way that people can detox. It's a hard, long-term process to detox that way. Or it can be very dangerous, too, if you're not doing it properly. But, once again, detox is just the beginning of what we normally do with treatment. Like, if you were to come into KLEAN's, treatment center, you'd have, 4 to 10 days of detox, and then you would start attending groups, and you'd start working with a therapist, and you'd be seen by a doctor. You'd be evaluated to see if there was anything going on with you physically, if maybe you're overcompensating for a pain problem or something else. And all these issues would be addressed in your life, and family issues, and without doing that, you're not going to have the basis for a successful treatment generally. It doesn't mean that you can't do it yourself, because some people do. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong way to go. If you think you can do it yourself and you do it safely, I do at least ask people to at least go to a doctor and have a doctor follow them while they're trying to detox themselves, because there's a lot of ways people die during detox. And, I hate to see that happen. So.
There's a saying, the philosopher Nietzsche had a saying, the mind that creates the problem cannot be the same mind that solves the problem.
Look at you quoting Nietzsche.
Come on,
Rod Espudo.
Come on, I'm not educated.
So look at you, Mike. So here's Mike. There we go. Applause for Rod Espudo, interventionist extraordinaire. So Mike, here's the question for you tonight. Do you want to get help?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple options. You're in Seattle, Washington. Whether it's our outpatient program, whether it's somebody else's that's closer to you, whether it's another rehab, whether it's our rehab, I want you to get help tonight, Mike. And here's the thing: I think we can help you. You called in a radio show. The first step is you basically said, "I'm powerless." You called in a radio show and you said, "I don't know what to do."
And you admitted your problem.
And you admitted it. Now it's time, like Andrew says, just because you admit it, just because you have that self-awareness or that self-knowledge, it doesn't mean that that's going to get you to the next level. Sometimes you need some friends to take you.
Absolutely.
So Mike, I tell you what, we're going to put you on hold. If you're interested in talking to our director, Rand DeWitt, we could get you the help tonight if you want.
That would absolutely mean the world to me.
Okay, so you know what, Mike? I want you to hold on. Rand's going to get on the line with you. And that was Mike calling from Seattle, Washington. Andrew, and like Mike, like so many people that called in tonight, Andrew, it's terrifying. It's confusing.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, and I think Roger's pointed it out, that here's some guy that's already got the basic principles of what's going on, and has tried to make it work himself and realizes he can't. And people still don't really know what different treatment is. They don't know what a rehab does. They think that rehab is the same as AA, and it's not.
Don't watch television. That's not rehab.
Yeah, right. Yeah, specifically the ones on VH1, right? So
that's right. Rob was on AMC. We're close. We're safe. Intervention was very good. It's something that people really don't know. They don't understand that there's detox protocols for different types of drugs that you're addicted to. Many people are polyaddicted, meaning that they're
they're using alcohol and pills. And most people that overdose on more than one drug.
Right.
So, people say, oh, well, I just drink. And then you really talk to them and they're blocking to think they just drink. But then you talk to them like, oh, but did you take ecstasy at that party ever? And they're like, oh, yeah, I've done ecstasy. And what about Vicodin? Oh, yeah, I've taken a few Vicodin too. And
it's just on the level of their main drug. Right.
Yeah,
they're comparing it to that.
But the thing that's really critical, I think that's important, is that they're not ignorant. They're just uneducated. That's it. And you're not going to be educating yourself.
Listen, I used to say when I was drinking, I would say, oh, I'm an alcoholic. But I had no idea what that meant. I just thought it sounded, I didn't understand that once I started, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't grasp that. I just couldn't, why couldn't I just drink 10?
Yeah.
Why couldn't I just drink a little bit?
But, also I think that getting back to the point of like letting people know what resources are out there, that's a big part of the show is letting people know that, there's a sophisticated group of medical professionals out there that are highly trained in dealing with problems with addiction. And they do it on all sorts of levels. They do it from an outpatient, one-to-one level. They do it in group outpatient. They do it in residential treatment, which is the traditional going to rehab idea. And they also do it in detox and medical detoxes and in residential detoxes. So, people need to know that there's help and that the help is actually not just, we hand you a book and tell you to read it and everything's going to be fine. But there's actually sophisticated, treatment that's been devised over long term by a lot of professionals. It's extremely beneficial.
It's really important, too, because I'm a recovering opiate addict as well, is that trying to minimize the amount of grams you're doing to justify you're okay.
Right.
0 is okay. 7, 5, 8, 10, 12, those don't count. That's not being clean. That's just cutting down.
And that's Rod Espudo. Rod, as always, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for inviting me, guys.
You're extraordinary.
It's good to see you again.
You're beautiful, and you have some big news coming up. And
Judah, you're beautiful too.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You are.
I need
He
to
is
hear.
beautiful.
I need to hear that.
He is.
He's a beautiful person.
Wow.
Glow.
Thank you. I'm just going to take the compliment. And if I could end the show right now, I would. But I want to thank everybody out there. And if you just this is KLEAN Radio. And if you've been listening, and I know you have been, and you're struggling, give us a call. The number is 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Just make that call. That was our hashtag tonight. The reason we wanted to do that is because the 1,000-pound elephant for an alcoholic. The 3 hardest words for an alcoholic or a drug addict to say, Andrew, is I need help. So if you're out there and you need help, just give us a call. That's 888-601-6040. And yes, I am beautiful. I was like, what is that song on? And
you know what? I'd just like to thank our loyal listeners too. It means a lot to us.
That's exactly right. And I want to thank everybody that follows on Facebook. So go to facebook.com/KLEAN Radio. Let us know what you think. It takes a lot of people also to put on this show. It takes Ole Jose behind the boards over there. It takes Rand DeWitt. It takes Patrick Sean Kennedy. It takes a village. And this music behind me too, it is beautiful, is a little creepy. And I'm having a really hard time, but I want you to stay.
Just don't drink over it, Judah. You'll be fine.
Don't drink it. Don't use it no matter what. Andrew Spanswick, as always. Rod Espudo from Intervention and a friend. Discussion continues at KLEANradio.com.
Are you or someone you care about addicted to drugs or alcohol? Addiction ruins lives and destroys families. Bring an end to the pain and suffering by calling KLEAN Treatment Centers. KLEAN has helped people from around the world break free by not only treating the addiction, but the underlying causes and providing vital aftercare so people can get clean and stay clean with no gimmicks and no false promises. If you need immediate assistance or just have questions, call KLEAN Treatment Centers for guidance. A much better life awaits.